This episode of the Bad Crypto Podcast is brought to you by eToro. The best way to be smart about trading crypto is to use the smartest trading platform. And you can get $25 in free Bitcoin from Bad Crypto when you go to badco.in/eToro and follow the easy instructions. That's badco.in/eToro. The IRS has issued new tax guidance for 2019. And what does it mean to you? What regulatory challenges exist for crypto companies heading into 2020? And will smart cities lead to a smarter government? These and many more questions will be answered today by someone far more knowledgeable than us. Maureen Murat, Esquire, is a principal at Crowdie Advisors, LLC. She knows things that we don't know and maybe things that you don't know, but by the end of the show, you'll know, you know? So come on down the rabbit hole with us. We'll have some rabbit food and talk crypto for episode number 335 of the Bad Crypto Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, ignition.
Who's bad?
Bouncing off of satellites throughout the atmosphere and somehow landing right here in your ears. It's the Bad Crypto Podcast with your hosts, Joel Comm.
And this is Travis Wright broadcasting to you from space.
Wow.
That's what you said, kind of, right? It's like we're like,
well, we kind of are. I mean, this technology, or underground, right? Because fiber cable, runs underground. So we could be mole people.
Well, the intelligent life forms that live underground.
I'm Joel the mole.
That's perfect. Oh my gosh. And I'm still Travis.
You're Travis the Bavished.
It's nothing. There's no animal rhymes with Travis, but I am a Taurus, and that's a bull. And speaking of bulls, eToro is our show sponsor. And the best way to be smart about trading crypto is to use the smartest trading platform. Duh. That's why we love to tell you about eToro. They are one of the largest trading platforms in the world with over $1 trillion in trading volume on the platform every year. U.S. customers can trade the most popular cryptos. There's 15 of them currently, very low fees. And if you're not ready to trade yet, well, guess what? You can just practice, because they have a practice portfolio, a virtual trading platform where you can trade up to 100,000 fake fiat dollars and buy fake crypto that's not real, but it's fun. And so also there's 11 million traders out there. You can communicate with them. You can also discuss trading charts, all things crypto, and the best traders, you can actually copy their portfolio. And we have a deal for you folks. Listen to this, Mr. Joel Com. What do they get if they sign up through this link?
Kick in the pants?
You get one kick in the pants. You go to badco.in/eToro, and we'll give you $25 worth of a kick in the pants.
$25 in Bitcoin. Go follow the instructions at badco.in/eToro. Find out. By the way, their fees are so low and transparent that they won't hurt your fees. Also want to give recognition to MobiPay, our other sponsor. Money has existed for thousands of years. We've talked on the show how once upon a time, people traded with cowrie shells, and then precious metals, and then minted coins, and then paper money, which is basically worthless fiat. But let's face it, transferring money today is slow and expensive. If you're a merchant, if you're a consumer, especially if you want to transfer your funds across borders. And so payments are going mobile. This is why the MobiPay ecosystem is the way to go, gang. Whether you have a bank account or not, you can send money and digital currency worldwide from your mobile phone in seconds. You guys got to go check this out. They're giving away right now, for those participating in the beta, $10 worth of Mobi coins, the MBX token. Go to mobipay.io. Check it out today. MOBIE pay, PAY.io. We recently had Samson Williams, a professor at the University of New Hampshire, on the show with us. And the interview was so great that when we were done, we said, Samson, you must have a lot of smart friends. And he said, well, I have a few. And we said, we want to talk to people that you think are smart because we want to learn from them as well. And wouldn't you know it, one of the people that he recommended to us is with us right now. Her name is Maureen Murat. She's an attorney and a principal at Crowdie Advisors, LLC. They're a business consulting firm that helps local and foreign entrepreneurs and small businesses form entities, transact business, and get financing and all that good stuff. And she teaches alongside Samson as an adjunct professor at the University of New Hampshire School of Law. And she knows blockchain things. So Maureen, welcome to Bad Crypto.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Nice.
Yeah. How long have you known Samson?
Oh, wow. I'm probably he probably knows better than me. I think it's probably going on 12 years or 13 years. I met him at a baby shower, actually, in Florida.
Was he the baby?
No. He was
Yeah. Actually, we asked him, we said, who's the smartest person you know? And he said you. And I said, well, wait, you know us? Wait, you know us? She said, nope, Maureen. So we had to share.
Oh, wow. Well, I'll take the compliment.
The smartest ever. This is great. So you know this dude. You've known him way before the crypto world. Then, so that's like OG. That's awesome. So how did you guys both get into the crypto world? Did one of you let the other one in on it, or what happened?
Well, he got into it. I think he'd heard about it before I did. He had mentioned it, but it didn't really, stick with me. What really actually got me interested was when I started my business trying to help people raise money via equity crowdfunding. And I started hearing people as I was going along trying to find business, right? People saying, well, why would I do, Reg CF and have to do all that documentation when I could just do an ICO? And I was like, wait, what's that? So that's kind of how I got into it.
And now that you're in it, like once you go down the blockchain rabbit hole, that's it. There's no turning back, right? You never look at the systems, the financial systems, the political systems, the banking systems, any of it ever the same way again.
I agree. Even when I don't, because there's a time where like there's just so much news, it's overwhelming. And so even when I take a break and come back, even in the break, I can't help but see things differently. So you're right. There's no going back.
It's like the Matrix, right? Once you see, then you can't unsee.
Right. And you learn so much more. Like every day I'm learning something different. So yeah.
Wait, does that mean that we're the human batteries, Mr. Jolcom? Because that was like a really weird thing in Matrix. Like they popped in there and they were like humans were like tapped in and they were the batteries.
I feel we're more like the ever ready bunny batteries because we just keep going and going and going.
That's true.
And going and going. Okay, I did not know where that was going, but okay.
That was weird. It's just a weird Matrix joke. So this is a wild world that we're in, and now you are an adjunct professor there at the University of New Hampshire School of Law, same as Samson. You mentioned you guys co-teach a couple of courses. What are some of those courses that you teach, and maybe what are some of the areas that your students find most fascinating?
Sure. So Samson and I co-teach tokenomics and cryptocurrency regulations. And then the second course is smart cities, smart government. In our tokenomics class, I think people are more fascinated by how these tokens kind of can almost represent anything. But we try to, impress upon them that it's not just about selling tokens or creating tokens. We also try to talk about creating value outside of, let's say, the cost, because oftentimes people confuse cost and value. So we try to talk about, what that is separately and together. In smart cities, I think one of the main issues is how governments are really not prepared to really to manage a smart city. And so how a lot of them will be using third parties to help them capture all the data they would need to facilitate a smart city. And so that presents a whole another set of issues in terms of privacy and cybersecurity issues.
Is anybody getting those smart cities right yet?
Not that, well, I won't say that. I know that Dubai, right? They have their initiative, their Dubai 2020 initiative. I think they're one of the closest ones to getting it right, but they also have some advantages. They're a lot smaller. They don't have a lot of legacy systems that they have to overcome. In terms of political issues, it's kind of like the prince says it and it is done, So I think, that's one of the reasons why they've been able to kind of move along a lot quicker.
I try to do that too. Like Joel does too. Like we try to act like we're princes and make things happen. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, when the sheikh says do it, it's it. That's
right.
it. It comes from the top down, and you better go ahead and do it. I visited Dubai last year for the first time, or this year actually for the first time, and was amazed to see how much has sprung up there in the desert. When we go to Las Vegas, which is in the middle desert, we look at that and think, wow, look what, metropolitan area has wrought here in the middle of nowhere. But Dubai, even more so. It's even more impressive. And I know that they are in the Emirates, amongst the most experimental, shall we say, in terms of bringing the West to the Middle East.
Right. Literally, think there's marble everywhere. There's gold everywhere. Yes, you're right.
So in the list of things that, you speak on and are interested in, one of them that really catches my eye are your thoughts on smart contracts. We talk about them frequently, less so now that there's fewer ICOs that are, we're seeing spring up on the Ethereum blockchain. But what are your thoughts on smart contracts?
So my saying is that smart contracts are neither smart nor are they contracts. And you mentioned earlier that I am an attorney. So when I think of a contract, I do not think of, programmable code that transfers, digital currencies or whatever the condition might be. And I think what happened when the term kind of came about was that people just assumed that if you had a smart contract, then it worked because there were a lot of issues there, right? And that, it automatically satisfies all transaction requirements and that it's legally binding, which is the main issue when you add the word contracts to anything. So my thoughts are that essentially smart contracts are the opposite of smart because all they have to do is just meet this very simple condition and then you go on to the next one. It doesn't really capture any other issues that might happen when there is an actual contract. Granted, I know that there are projects around trying to find ways to make smart contracts as legally sound as possible and potentially legally binding. But at this point, I don't think we're there yet.
What would you think would be a better term to describe what's taking place there?
So one of my colleagues calls it a self-executory instrument, which to me makes sense.
That's not as sexy.
It's not sexy, right?
I got me a self-executory instrument right here.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's not sexy. I don't know. I haven't thought of a word to call it other than, maybe just a condition or I have to think about what would be a sexy way to say it.
It's a program because that's basically all it is. It's programmable, little pieces of information that trigger based on certain parameters, right? So maybe let's call it triggered. Get triggered contract.
That sounds like it could be applied to something else.
We just got triggered. That's good. So programmable money, that's, but the smart contracts, the idea of having those self-execution, airy, programmable little snippets of code are quite helpful. So, but maybe what do you mean that they're not contracts? They're just sort of just stipulations based on programs. And so it's not a contract based on like law. Is that kind of how you're coming from that since you're an attorney?
Right. Right. Because if you're thinking about a contract, I'll try not to be too lawyerly. When you have a contract, first you need an assent of the minds. And I think you can make an argument that smart contracts, there is some assent of the minds because people enter into the agreement knowing that if this particular thing happens, then this has to follow. But then you also need consideration and a bargain for exchange. And so generally speaking, a bargain for exchange is that and you could even make that argument, right? That you could bargain what in fact you would exchange in in exchange. I know I said that twice, for whatever the condition is. But the issue with the smart contracts that I mainly have is that they don't leave room for if there's an issue that happens that the contract doesn't cover, right? Then what happens? It doesn't leave room for what is considered good faith. It doesn't leave room for if the data that is being transferred across this, smart contract is, either insufficient or just bad data. What's the recourse for that? And those are certain things you would have if you had an actual, standard contract.
So, in 2017, early 2018, we saw these ICOs, and then people got scared that, no, these might be securities and US law, might come down on us. So then we see STOs and we see IEOs. And now we've been hearing about another way to crowdfund as an ICO, but using convertible notes. What does that look like, and how is it different, and how might that get past these, past the security laws?
Well, so first, a convertible note is not anything novel. Companies, especially VCs, have been using this for a long time to invest in businesses. So essentially, a convertible note is it's debt. It's short-term debt that at some point in the future can be turned into equity in the company. And so that's one way to raise money. You essentially, it starts out as debt. So let's say the VC says, I'll give you $100,000 at this rate for your business. And then let's say within 2 or 3 years, your business gets acquired or it makes a lot of money, and they can convert that debt. Instead of you paying them back, they convert that debt into equity, but they get it at a discount.
But that would never be a problem. I mean, if they're looking at ways, because you're offering equity in the company, right? With ICOs, STOs, IEOs, you're talking about offering tokens, which is not equity.
Right. So I'm not sure. I haven't heard about this new way of doing an ICO that's a convertible note, but then you don't give equity. I'm not sure how that works, unless you're trying to use the SAFT. I don't know if you remember that. That was from 2017, the Simple Agreement for Future Tokens, which by the way, is not a thing. This is my PSA. It is not a thing. So unless you're saying that they're, going to purchase these tokens and at some point they actually get the tokens.
Wait, rewind. Why is the SAFT not a thing?
Well, one, the SAFT was created as, I guess, a tag along to the SAFE, which came out of the Y Combinator incubator, the Simple Agreement for Future Equity, which is something they created. But in the SEC world, there is no provision that covers you being able to have these future tokens be given to you in the future without having to deal with securities laws. Even for equity, you have to deal with securities laws.
We just made it up.
So, there are a lot of things that have been made up.
Yeah, I was actually going to
there was a lot of that.
That's true. No, I was going to ask about that because, the genesis of this was, the Jobs Act of 2012, which was acronym Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act, or the Jobs Act, signed into law by Obama in 2012. Now that really sort of allowed for crowdfunding to start happening more on an equity type of level. And I think we started seeing more Kickstarters happening. We started seeing some other things happen. And one of my whole things was wow, this company just raised $4 million in paying for products in advance, and they've given no equity of their company up. And then that sort of evolved into an ICO type of a thing where they became tokens instead of, buying a product in advance, So where maybe is that crowdfunding model moving towards in the future, do you think? Because SAFT's not a thing. ICOs are going away. IEOs might be something, STOs, but crowdfunding is not going away, right? We're in this sort of crowdsourced world now. How is that going to come into investments and growing of businesses? Not necessarily just blockchain related, but all businesses.
Right. And I mean, if you ask me, I think ICOs are like crowdfunding, right? Because essentially you're getting small amounts of money from a large group of people to fund a cause, a project, or something. But in terms of where crowdfunding will go, right now with the Jobs Act under Reg CF, Title III of the Jobs Act, you can either raise money via equity crowdfunding or you can raise money via debt crowdfunding. And with debt, you can use a convertible note, or you can do a revenue sharing model, or you can do a straight up loan where the business pays you back, pays the group of people back. But I think to your point that because we're in this crowdsource world and a lot of the projects, especially in the blockchain world, create community or require a community, I could see crowdfunding being something that will continue to be used as a means to raise funds. I think initially, because of the timing of it all, technically, yes, Obama passed that law in 2012, but equity crowdfunding didn't actually become enacted. That part of the act didn't become enacted until May 2016. And on the heels of it was ICOs and SCOs and all that. So I think it lost some of its steam, to the ICO world. But I think now that we're coming back around and realizing that essentially a lot of these are actually issuing and offering of securities, that crowdfunding will become a thing. It's kind of like how you were saying earlier, trying to find another word for smart contracts. It just wasn't sexy. I think, regulation crowdfunding just wasn't sexy.
So, Maureen, do you see this coming back around? I mean, you said it's going to come back around, but do you see it being another explosive time for whatever we then call these ICOs, where all of a sudden there's going to be a path for these businesses to do this crowdfunding and they're just going to come out of the woodwork?
I think so. I think one of the issues that we had before is that people felt like they needed, in order for them to be able to raise the money, they had to skirt laws or get around things and just, and not have to go through the SEC or any other regulatory body. But I think given that the SEC has made it very clear that they are paying attention, that people will, realize that there's nothing going through the SEC or going by a specific set of rules doesn't diminish what it is that you're trying to do. So I do think that the next wave of funding will be crowdfunding.
When do you think that we'll have that pathway to do that?
I think it's happening. I'm trying to help the movement, if you will. I think I would give it 3 to 5 years, because I think we're still waning off of ICO stuff. So I think in the next 3 to 5 years, VCs will definitely have to pay attention to crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding campaigns.
Yeah.
And like you were saying earlier about Kickstarter and how they don't necessarily have to give anything up front when they take in funds. That's because they're rewards based. And so they do have to give something within a reasonable time. Generally, it's not even the product that they're selling. Sometimes it's a t-shirt or a mug or something, some incentive. But that also means the person who gives the money doesn't expect anything more than whatever it is you said you're going to give them. Mm-hmm. They don't expect, if your business, booms and you get acquired and you make all this money, they don't expect you to give them any money for supporting you in the beginning.
Yeah, that's why it was so wild, is that with this huge ICO, just the craze that happened, like even for like Ethereum, for example, the SEC's come out and said Ethereum is not a security, but if you invested in Ethereum early on, like it got, and depending on when you sold it, it got like 40,000 times return on that. I mean, just ridiculous numbers. And like normal business, you don't see that. Like even if you're like a normal VC or an angel investor and you invest $1 million and then it turns into $1 billion company, I mean, you've made a pretty good return, but you've not gotten 40,000 times your return on investment, which is some of those ICOs was just completely crazy. And the thing is you own none of the company. You own these tokens that is like based on future revenue. But in some of the ways, it was just, that whole thing was the wild, wild west in 2017. And that's when we started our show. So we were starting to pick up speed and all this crazy whirlwind was happening. And we're not experts in this space. We're trying to help people navigate this. And here we are in the wild, wild west of this digital crowdfunding with no equity, token based. It was just, wow, like what is going on here? It was just one of the most crazy times ever when it comes to potentially investing stuff in those 2016 to 2018. What?
No, I hear you. But there is a project. I don't know if you've heard of Popcom. Actually, Samson put me onto that. I don't know if you mentioned in the last, when you spoke to him, but they were able to combine an STO with their Reg CF crowdfunding so that people would get the tokens, but they do actually get equity in the business.
See, that's the hybrid. What was it called? Top?
Right.
What was it? Top what?
Popcom.
Popcom.
P-O-P, yeah.
That's what we call Joel. Like his last name's Com, so maybe that's what his kids call him. They call you Pop.
Yeah.
You're Popcom, Papa.
Okay.
We call him
that works.
We love the way you call us Little Papa, Joel. Little Papa.
Okay, that's not true at all, but I appreciate that. Appreciate it. So you co-authored the book with Samson, right, on crowdfunding.
Yes, we have a workbook. It's called Raising Money, a 90-day guide to help you kind of navigate from the start of your crowdfunding campaign to the end. But we don't only talk about raising money. We also talk about the fact that you're supposed to be running a business. Crowdfunding is not your business. Crowdfunding is just a means to get your business going. But yeah, and we also do a masterclass. Next year, we're trying to do once a quarter in different areas because we've been asked to travel. This year, we just did it between New York and DC. But so far, we're trying to get the word out, essentially.
Oh, that's great. And you're up in New Hampshire, so you wouldn't, necessarily when you think of blockchain hubs in America, New Hampshire is not one that normally rolls off the top. I mean, we hear Wyoming, there's stuff that they're trying to do. There's some other states that are doing some stuff. So what's really going on up there in New Hampshire? Because, with both of you all up there, and then I know also that we got George Pullen from the CFTC. Samson's pulled him in to do some training and teaching up there. What is going on at the University of New Hampshire when it comes around blockchain? Because it sounds like a little hotbed you got going up there.
Well, we are actually not based in New Hampshire. We are, I'm based in DC, okay. Samson's based in DC, and so is George, actually. George is based in this area. And our courses are all online. So we pre-record our lectures, and then we sometimes tag team or we separate, we do videos separately. But what is going on up there is that the director of the blockchain program or the certificate program, Dean Tanya Evans, realized that, one way to get to subside some of the misinformation that was happening in 2016, 2017, 2018, is to kind of bring it under the academic umbrella. And so she and Samson worked together and they created this program, the Blockchain, Cryptocurrency, and the Law Certificate Program at the law school. And so people can take it from all over. We've had people in our class who live in Barbados. We've had people in our class who live in New Hampshire. We have people in our class who are in the South. So what's kind of cool about it is it's decentralized in a way. Everybody can kind of access it from wherever they are.
Kind of like a University of Phoenix thing, right?
I don't know about University of Phoenix. Is it mainly online? I think it is. Is it still open? Is it? Okay.
I think so. Oh, okay. I don't know. Travis, it has nothing to do with New Hampshire, dude. The whole setup there was
screw nothing. New Hampshire. Forget you guys up there. They're doing nothing.
No, I do have their community there.
That's okay. So in your book, you talk about different ways that businesses can crowdfund. Maybe kind of just bullet point for us some of those options that businesses have if they need to raise money in the blockchain space.
Sure. So there are 4.5, I'll say, different ways to raise money via crowdfunding, just crowdfunding generally. So you can do donation based, which is people are just essentially donating. They don't expect anything back. Most times, though, those donations are for, charitable causes and things like that. So people go to GoFundMe or a site like that to crowdfund. Another way to crowdfund is rewards based, and we talked about that earlier. So that's essentially people giving money, but they're expecting some sort of a gadget or widget in return, potentially something that you will actually create, or it could be something kind of like a perk just for supporting that particular project or item. So that's like Indiegogo or Kickstarter. And then the next ones.
That's the next site is going to be Kickstarter.
but it's not smart, and you don't get kicked. So it's like that too. It's like a smart contract. It's neither smart nor you're not going to get kicked either. That was horrible. You didn't like that? No, yeah. Not even a minor chuckle on that one. Damn.
I was trying. It was coming. What was I saying? Oh, so the other type of crowdfunding is debt and equity crowdfunding, which is what Samson and I mainly present on. So with equity crowdfunding, you're taking on investors. You are notifying the SEC that you're going to raise money from these investors. You go through a platform. The platform is registered with the SEC and is FINRA approved. So FINRA is the Financial Regulatory Authority, and they give you a license to operate as a funding portal. And so people go on, and the platform essentially takes on applications from issuers or the companies, and they take on applications from the actual investors because they got to make sure the investors are who they say they are, et cetera. And then there's debt crowdfunding, which is very similar to equity, but instead of giving equity, you are essentially borrowing money from a group of people, and you get payments made to you. If you are the investor, you're getting payments from that person. And they split up the payment proportional to how much you put in to help that person raise their funds that they were going to borrow. And then the half is royalties. So royalty based. So these are people who are artists or, musicians, et cetera. And so they, instead of going through a traditional production company or something like that, they would put their music onto a website. And as they sell, because you helped them, help them produce their music, as they sell, whatever royalties they get, they share with their supporters.
Well, there's one more way that you don't mention. It's not the recommended method, but you could rob a bank. And,
okay,
that's fine.
It is not recommended.
That's 4.75.
Not at all.
Yeah, probably not good. I want to ask about the evolution of this now, right? Because you said you and Samson talk about equity and crypto and how that's sort of combined. Now, in the future, because we've had these conversations, Joel and I have chatted with other guests in the past about this, is like the merger of stocks and tokens, right? And equity and tokens. And like, I imagine like having an Apple coin at some point or something that's like equity in the company, but then I can also use it to spend in some manner. Is this happening? Is this the next evolution of what we're seeing right now with some of these methods of crowdfunding you're talking about?
I think that was probably already happening, which is one of the issues that I think that the SEC kind of highlighted, the fact that people were saying what they were issuing were not securities, because at some point you would be able to actually use that token or that coin in that ecosystem that they would eventually build. And so I think nowadays, though, there are two ways to do it. You can either do it this way, as you mentioned. So I'm going to invest, I'm going to get these tokens, and these tokens in some form or fashion represent the equity that I have in your company. But at some point I should, I'll be able to use those tokens in your business or in your ecosystem. Or it's two separate tokens, if you will. One token actually represents equity, and so you could transfer that token, but that token means that you're selling your equity after a certain time, because there are rules around when you can transfer your equity in a business. There's a 12-month lockup period. Or it could mean that you hold on to it wait for it to, 100x, 10x, whatever, and then exchange it. Or when you get, let's say your business blows up and you get acquired by someone, then you can trade in your tokens in exchange for your payout. But I think over time, people are going to realize that, I'll say this. I think that if you are going to offer a token that could potentially be used in your ecosystem at some point, if you're looking for investors, I don't think a selling point to investors is that you might be able to use this token in my ecosystem at some point or another. I think the way to really attract investors is to talk about what your business will actually do. How do you expect to make money? How do you expect to scale or grow? Do you expect to be $100 million business, or do you want to be a lifestyle business? So that means you're making less than $20 million, but you're comfortable, you're doing well. So I think those things should be more important than, what those tokens will be at some point.
Well, let me throw a hypothetical at you then, right? Because what we've said in the past is like, for example, Apple, right? Let's say it's 2001 Apple. I can go and buy an iPod for $300. I can go and buy one of their MacBooks or their Macs for $2,000, and their stock's $11 a share, right? And let's say let's say you're able to, by buying our product, you also get some sort of tokenized asset from us because you're supporting us and our growth, right? And let's say so you buy the Mac for $3,000 and you also get 20 Apple tokens or whatever, right? And so over time, as the company, as Apple has grown and now it's worth so much, it was worth $11, $12 then it did a 7 split, and then when it got to whatever, and now it's worth $150 or more each, and it's so your 10 turned into 70, and now your 70 is worth $150 each. It's worth way more than the MacBook that you bought, but that's not how the system is set up. The system is set up as, hey, buy our junk, and investors are going to invest. Investors are going to get rich, but people who support us are going to stay perpetually poor because they're always buying shit they don't need necessarily. Is there a way to have a hybrid? That way it's almost like capitalism meets consumerism in a way that it's rewarded, right? Like I'm rewarded for supporting you as you become a $1 trillion company.
I think you just gave a great example for why crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding specifically, is such a great option for small businesses who are raising money, because you can use your crowdfunding campaign as a customer acquisition campaign. So that means that, indeed, you will be selling your business, but you're also raising money. So your customers can become your investors and vice versa. Your investors could potentially become your investor. Your investors could potentially become your customers. So I think that was a great example of why crowdfunding is very beneficial. So a lot of breweries, beer breweries, especially in this area, have done that, right? They've gotten their customers who really like whatever beer they're making, and they've become investors. And so now what they do is, in addition to buying the beer, when they go out to a bar, if their local bar doesn't have the beer that they've invested in, that they like, they ask for it. And you ask for it enough times, and so they pick it up. And so now the business is growing because people are buying more beer, ordering more beer. And you have these investors who are kind of, your evangelists or championing for you because they like your product. So I think there can be that. But part of the issue is finding that community. The company has to find that way to get to the crowd.
Got it.
Well, Maureen, we appreciate you joining us today. The website, CrowdieAdvisors.com, and you guys can check out the book, the guide called Raising Money on the website. And we recommend it because we think that both Maureen and Samson, they got some cool stuff going on.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Great interview. Always pleasure to have people who are so brilliant in the Republic of Bad Cryptopia. So blessed, Mr. Travis Wright. We get to interview and speak with so many incredibly astute people. And what this world needs is more astutes.
Very true. I got to say it is amazing, and we got some action-packed interviews coming up over the next few episodes, and you guys are going to love that. We have been content beasts doing great interviews with amazing people, amazing authors, amazing thought leaders, amazing innovators and entrepreneurs, and just old school people who've done epic things. And so it's only getting better, and we're having fun doing this. So thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate you. It's really cool when we go to events and, people will say, hey, came here to this event because you were going to be here and wanted to meet us. And like, that's happened several times recently. And that's just so awesome and humbling. We love you guys. And if you ever run up, if you ever see me, or Joel, come up and say, hey, what's up? Because I normally got a pocket full of stickers or something. I'll give you something cool, Bad Crypto, because I want to reward the cool people who are the fans. And we meet in the real life. That's always fun.
What's especially fun about that is that when people encounter us together and we're having a conversation with them, sometimes they'll be like, God, it feels like I'm listening to the podcast, right? Because it's the same voices.
We've been in places where Joel and I have been having a conversation, and somebody would turn around going, I know your voices, which is weird. Like, yeah, that's happened a few times too. Like, I know that voice, and that's cool. So thank you guys.
I've seen those faces. Weren't you guys in the post office on a wanted poster?
I was on the milk jug.
Because you were lost?
No, because I was thirsty.
They don't put people on the milk jug because they're thirsty.
Give this guy milk. He is thirsty.
Put children.
It was advertising. I was like, this guy needs milk.
You were the cow. On
preferably the chocolate or strawberry flavored milk. Maybe something that's quick.
We're working. We're working. We're not working.
He likes almond milk, though. He's not a fan of dairy and casein proteins.
Can I talk now?
Go ahead.
We're all over.
Do you have milk?
Socials. I got no milk. Got no milk. But what I do have is we've got a killer Instagram account. So come on over to Instagram and follow us. We're at Bad Crypto Podcast. Our producer and social queen, Erin, is always posting great content. Occasionally we'll post stuff ourselves as well. Like we'll do stories, especially if we're at an event or something. We'll do Instagram stories to share with you the people that we're meeting and the things that we're doing. And that's always lots of fun as well. So come check us out there on Insta. Mr. Travis Wright, any last words before we close out this episode?
Yeah, sometimes I like to put funny memes that I find in the story. So like I just randomly put Bitcoin is dancing kind of naked.
Oh yeah.
And Tether is making it rain with dollar bills. It's pretty exciting.
Nice.
It's pretty good. That's story worthy.
Kinda, sorta. So there you go. That's what you're missing.
Real time content creation. You stay around to the end of the podcast and you hear things that there's no reason for you to hear.
And sometimes if you listen through the disclaimer, some of you have picked up on this, that you might occasionally encounter an Easter egg, something that was not put into the regular show.
Why are they called Easter eggs?
It's because it's something you find. It's like you discover something you didn't know was going to be there.
Yeah, but what does Jesus have to do with eggs?
Nothing.
Okay.
Only that he's excellent.
That's good. Very nicely
good. All right, gang. Catch you next time. Stay bad. The Bad Crypto Podcast is a production of Bad Crypto LLC. The content of the show, the videos, and the website is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice of any kind. You shouldn't make any decisions as to finances, investing, trading, or anything else based on this information without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional financial advisor. Please understand that the trading of Bitcoins and alternative cryptocurrencies have potential risks involved. Anyone wishing to invest in any of the currencies or tokens mentioned on this podcast should first seek their own independent professional financial advisor. Hey, why are you guys still listening? There's no Easter egg here.
Why do they call it Easter eggs?
Because it's a surprise.
Bunnies don't lay eggs. So
they don't. Yeah, why don't they call them chicken eggs?
Yeah, what the hell? Bunnies lay like little brown turds. And it's not chocolate.
I think you just laid a little brown turd.
Thank you, Easter Bunny. Oh, the Easter Bunny left me chocolate, Mom. Don't eat that. Too late. I've already had 7. They are not nearly as delicious as I was hoping.
And that's what an Easter egg sounds like.
Who's that?